I always thought if it happened to me, I'd know. I'd see the signs, the late nights, the cold kisses, the vague explanations. But the truth is, real betrayal doesn't walk in with a neon sign. It whispers. It creeps. It waits until you're just comfortable enough, just distracted enough, to slit your throat without you even realizing you're bleeding. That's how it happened to me. The first real crack was the conference. Parent-teacher night. A stupid, fluorescent-lit Thursday in late September. I'd just gotten off a 12-hour shift, still reeking of copier ink and stale cafeteria coffee. But I was there because I always was. Our son, Nate, had been struggling in math, and his new teacher, Mr. Haver, had requested we come in to discuss Nate's learning environment. Laura had said, which already felt a little pretentious to me, like his classroom was some kind of lab experiment instead of a place with glue sticks and snotty tissues. We met Mr. Haver in room 204, late 30s, tall, wore a button-down shirt too fitted for a school setting, and had that kind of effortless stubble that looks like it's been carefully designed. He smiled a lot. Too much. I chalked it up to the kind of manic optimism people who teach fourth grade have to develop to survive. But there was something else. A flicker in Laura's eyes. She stood straighter when he spoke. Laughed too hard at something he said about multiplication being a gateway drug to algebra. It was subtle, just the ghost of something, but stayed with me. We sat at those tiny desks, me trying not to snap the child-sized chair under my weight, while Haver went over Nate's test scores. Laura asked most of the questions. I nodded, tried to seem engaged, but my focus kept drifting. Her hand was resting too close to the edge of his desk. His pen kept clicking like Morse code. And when the meeting ended, Haver gave Nate's test folder to her. Not to me, to her. That night, she was quiet in bed. Said she was tired. I believed her. I always believed her. Weeks passed. Nothing screamed infidelity. Just whispers. She started dressing a little sharper. Said it was for work. She had client meetings. She smiled more when texting, then turned her screen away if I got too close. I don't want to be that guy, I told myself. The paranoid husband. The cliché. So I let slide. Because love does that. It makes you blind. Or maybe it just makes you complicit in your own downfall. The second crack was Nate. He'd come home with a drawing, a family picture. Crude, colorful, innocent. Except there were 4 people in it. Me, Laura, Nate, and someone else. A tall figure with a blue shirt and brown hair. That's Mr. Haver, Nate said proudly, holding the crayon mess up for us at dinner. He came with us to the museum. I froze. What museum? Laura didn't miss a beat. The class trip, remember? I chaperoned. That wasn't new. She often volunteered for school events. But Haver wasn't supposed to be in our family portrait. He wasn't supposed to be smiling next to my wife like he belonged. I let it go. Again, told myself it was innocent. She didn't owe me a detailed itinerary every time she left the house. Besides, we had history. 13 years. You don't throw that out over a gut feeling. But the gut never forgets. The final crack, the one that split everything open, came with a phone call. I was working late again, trying to balance payroll for the office, when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice. Soft, careful. You don't know me, but I thought you should see this. She sent a photo. Just one. Laura and Mr. Haver. At a bar. Not a restaurant. Not a school function. A dimly lit, low-ceiling bar I knew well. The Timberline, 10 minutes from our house. Her hand was on his thigh. His face was close to hers, lips brushing her ear. Her smile wasn't the kind you give a friend. It was the kind she used to give me when we were still us. I stared at it for a long time. Tried to breathe through it. Rage came first. Then nausea. Then nothing. A hollow kind of silence. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Nate was asleep. I watched him for hours, his small chest rising and falling, unaware that his world was about to shatter. I knew I had to be careful. This wasn't just a marital betrayal. It was a parental one. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite the narrative. I would get the full story. I would collect evidence. And when I was ready, I'd make sure Laura knew what it felt like to be betrayed by someone who once swore they'd never hurt you. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I sat in the dark, watching Laura's phone on the kitchen counter like it was a live grenade. She always charged it there before bed, screen down. I never checked it before. Never had a reason to. But that was before the picture. Before the anonymous voice on the phone who knew what I hadn't been willing to admit. At 2:14 a.m., I picked it up. She was upstairs, sound asleep, or pretending to be. My hand shook as I opened it. No password. I felt sick. Part of me wanted there to be nothing. Just a weird coincidence. A misread moment. But it didn't take long to find what I was looking for. A message thread with the contact name, MH. The initials should have tipped me off weeks ago. Her texts were soft, flirty, dangerous. His were worse, possessive, needy. Missed your laugh today. Next Friday. Your place. Nate's with your sister, right? Wear that gray dress. The one that makes me forget my name. I scrolled until my fingers were numb. Dozens of messages. Photos. A video, grainy and shot at a strange angle. Of her smiling in a hotel room mirror, blouse half unbuttoned, whispering something I couldn't bring myself to play with sound. I dropped the phone like it bit me, the taste of bile creeping up my throat. I didn't wake her. What was the point? Cheaters don't confess because they're caught. They confess because they've run out of ways to lie. And Laura? She still had lies left. Plenty. I could see it in the way she smiled at breakfast the next morning. Too cheerful. Made my skin crawl. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing had changed. And I let her. I even smiled back. I started my plan that day. The first thing I did was install a keylogger on the home laptop. She used it for emails, grocery lists, school volunteer forms. All the stuff she thought I didn't care about. And maybe I didn't. Before. But now every spreadsheet, every search history detail was a piece of the puzzle. Within 48 hours, I had passwords. Her Gmail, her Facebook, her private Pinterest board labeled Someday. That one hit me harder than I expected. It was filled with photos of coastal homes, elopement dresses, articles titled things like How to Start Fresh at 40. One quote was pinned 3 times. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Cute. The second thing I did was schedule a meeting with the school's vice principal. Not as a jealous husband, as a concerned father. I asked polite, curious questions about the school's chaperone policy, about whether teachers were allowed to spend time one-on-one with students' parents outside of school, whether Mr. Haver had ever received any complaints. I watched her face carefully as she answered. She was good, tight-lipped, diplomatic, but something flickered when I said his name. A hesitation, a shift in posture, and then she said something that told me everything I needed to know. You know, we've had a lot of enthusiasm from parents about Mr. Haver. He's very involved. Involved, right? I left the school and drove straight to a friend of mine, Charlie, who owed me a favor. Charlie did tech installs, cameras, audio bugs, things people requested when they wanted to feel secure or when they wanted to uncover something they already suspected. I didn't have to say much, just handed him an address and said, I want to know who's walking into my house when I'm not home. He just nodded. By the end of the week, I had cameras hidden in the den, the kitchen, and, God help me, the guest room. The same one Laura once made up for her cousin who never visited. The one she kept suspiciously tidy. I didn't expect it to happen so soon. It was a Wednesday. I was supposed to be in a training seminar an hour away. Laura knew that. She kissed me on the way out, told me not to forget to grab almond milk on my way home. I smiled, said sure thing. By 11:38 a.m., her car was back in the driveway. By 11:52 a.m., his was behind hers. They didn't use the front door. They slipped in through the garage. I watched it all on my phone. Laura laughed as she unbuttoned his shirt before they even hit the hallway. He kissed her neck like he owned it, like I didn't exist. They didn't even bother locking the door. I sat in my car for hours, engine off, the footage playing over and over like some sick film reel. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was beyond that. Rage is hot. This was cold. Calculating. They thought they were safe. That I'd stay in the dark. That they could rewrite reality with smiles and lies and shared lesson plans. But I had the footage. I had the messages. I had everything. Now the question wasn't what did they do. I knew that. It was what was I going to do with it. I didn't go home that night. I drove aimlessly for hours, headlights tunneling through the dark while the rest of the world slept in ignorant comfort. I parked in an empty lot behind a shuttered strip mall and sat in the silence, the kind so thick it presses against your chest. I replayed the footage again and again, not because I needed to confirm what I saw, but because I couldn't stop. Their voices were low, breathy. Hers was playful, like I hadn't heard it in years. His laugh made my hands clench around the steering wheel. It wasn't jealousy anymore. It was data collection. I was studying predators in their habitat. Laura called me around 10. "Hey," she said, "you heading home soon? Nate wants to show you something he built in Minecraft." Her voice didn't even tremble. I told her I'd been called out for a work emergency, that I'd be late. She said, "Okay," like she believed me. I said, "Love you," just to hear if she'd hesitate. She didn't. That was the part that broke something in me. She didn't even hesitate. The next morning, I sat across from Nate at breakfast, watching him munch cereal while humming the same annoying song he always did. He looked like her. Had her eyes, her cheekbones. He didn't deserve this. None of it. I try not to wonder how much he'd seen. Kids always know more than they let on. "Mr. Haver says I'm really good at building," Nate said, mouth full of Lucky Charms. He showed me how to make a trapdoor with redstone. I felt my stomach turn. "When did you see him?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Yesterday. After school. Mom picked me up, and he was there. He showed me some stuff while we waited for her to finish talking to Mrs. Kerr." I nodded, masking the heat rising in my chest. He was getting closer to my son, sliding in like a substitute father figure. He wasn't just screwing my wife. He was laying groundwork, trying to wear my skin. I called in sick that day. Told work I had a stomach bug. It wasn't far from the truth. I couldn't stomach pretending everything was fine anymore. Instead, I printed every email, every photo, every message. I backed up the video files. I organized them into folders. One labeled proof. One labeled collateral. The third one I labeled scorched earth, just in case. Then I drove to the school. Not to confront him. That would be too easy. No, I wanted to watch. To understand how deep this thing went. I sat in my car, parked across the street, sunglasses on. Watched him greet students like some overgrown camp counselor. He was charming. Too charming. Teachers don't smile like that unless they're hiding something. Then Laura showed up. She wasn't scheduled to volunteer that day. She wasn't even dressed like a parent. She was dressed like she wanted to be noticed. Tight jeans, soft pink sweater, hair done like she was going on a second date. Not dropping off her son. She didn't see me. Or if she did, she didn't care. They spoke by the flagpole. Not close enough to touch, but the distance between them was intimate. A shared secret. Her hand brushed her hair behind her ear. Classic. His laugh, God, that laugh, made her glow. I took a photo, then another, documenting their dance like a war correspondent. I could have gotten out, could have walked across the street and punched him in the teeth. But that wasn't the point anymore. This wasn't about rage. This was about dismantling them. Quietly. Systematically. The way they dismantled me. I waited until Nate was asleep before confronting Laura. She was in the bathroom removing her makeup, humming to herself like she hadn't just betrayed our entire family. I stood in the doorway, holding her phone. She saw it in my hand and froze. "What are you doing?" she asked. Calm, but with an edge. I turned the screen toward her. The video. I'll let play in full this time. No sound needed. Her mouth parted slightly. Not in shock. In defeat. "You went through my phone? That's what you're leading with." I said, "Not the part where you've been fucking our kid's teacher." She crossed her arms. "Lower your voice." "What?" I stepped forward. "Afraid Nate might hear who you really are?" She tried to turn it on me. "They always do." Said I'd been distant. That I'd stopped trying. That she felt invisible. Like any of that justified torching our life. I let her talk. Every word was a nail in her own coffin. "It just happened," she said finally. "We didn't plan it." I laughed. Bitter. Joyless. You don't accidentally end up in a hotel room, half-naked, whispering about gray dresses. That takes planning. That takes intent. She didn't deny it. Just sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing her temples like she was the one betrayed. "What now?" she asked, barely above a whisper. That was the real question, wasn't it? What now? I told her she had 48 hours to end it. Cleanly. No contact. No farewell coffee dates. She was to tell him it was over and block him on everything. Then she was to draft a written confession. A full account. Signed. If she refused, I'd send the footage to the school board. I'd tell every parent in Nate's class. I'd make sure he was unemployable and she was a pariah in every suburban mom circle in the county. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "You'd ruin my life?" she said. "You ruined ours," I replied. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't break down crying. And that's what scared her most. She agreed, said she'd end it. But I knew better. I'd seen her eyes when she looked at him. This wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night either. I lay next to her in the dark, both of us staring at opposite walls like prisoners who couldn't bear the sound of the other breathing. Her phone was on the nightstand, silent for once, like it knew better than to betray her now. I imagined her fingers itching for it, for his messages, for the little dopamine drip that came with his stupid compliments. I almost pitied her. Almost. Morning came with that same quiet tension, the kind that thickens the air and makes every word sound like a test. She made Nate's breakfast like she always did, only now she didn't. She barely spoke. I watched her from the hallway, arms crossed, the way you watch someone you no longer trust around sharp objects. Nate bounced in, completely unaware. "Dad, can we go to the park today?" I said sure. I meant it. Not because I wanted to toss a football, because I needed him out of the house. I needed to watch her alone. She left at noon, said she was meeting a client downtown, said it like it was routine. I followed 10 minutes later. She didn't know I'd bugged her car. Tiny tracker under the rear bumper, courtesy of Charlie again. She went west, not downtown, to a little cafe near the elementary school. Cozy, tucked into a corner lot. I parked down the street and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I was just starting to think she really was meeting a client when his car showed up. Have her, like clockwork. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched. He slid into the booth across from her and leaned in close. No kiss. No dramatic greeting. Just quiet urgency. She was already crying. Not hysterical. Just the kind of crying that simmers. Her shoulders trembled. She kept glancing around like she expected me to burst through the window. Maybe she thought I was already watching. She wasn't wrong. He grabbed her hand across the table, whispered something. She nodded, shook her head, covered her face. Then he stood up, tossed a bill on the table, and walked out. She sat there for a while. Didn't finish her drink. Just stared into it like she was trying to see her reflection and hated what looked back. She came home 2 hours later. Didn't say where she'd been. I didn't ask. Just nodded and went back to loading the dishwasher. That night, she left the signed confession on the kitchen table. 3 pages. Dated. Detailed. Cold. Like it wasn't her writing it at all. Like she was narrating a bad dream that happened to someone else. I read it in silence. Every line an incision. I entered a relationship with Marcus Haver, our son's teacher, over the course of several months. I misrepresented my actions to my husband. It was a breach of trust and responsibility. I highlighted the key phrases. I photographed every page. Stored the originals in a fireproof lockbox in the garage. That should have been the end of it. The confession. The no-contact agreement. The promise to repair what was left of the damage. But things never end that neatly. I saw the signs. Her restlessness. The way she'd linger by the kitchen window, staring out like she was waiting for a ship that wouldn't come. The phone stayed quiet, but her eyes didn't. They kept moving, kept searching. She didn't want me back. She just didn't want to be the villain. And Haver, he didn't disappear. I caught him once driving slowly past our house, windows up, sunglasses on, like he was just taking the scenic route through a cul-de-sac. I stepped onto the porch, made sure he saw me. He didn't wave. He just kept driving. 2 days later, Nate came home with a note in his backpack. We're proud to share that Mr. Haver has been nominated for the Regional Teacher Spotlight this year. He was selected by both staff and parents for his outstanding dedication. I almost laughed. The audacity of it. The man was sleeping with his student's mother and getting awards for professionalism. I circled the name in red ink, then crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Nate asked why. I told him the school made a mistake. He didn't press. He rarely did these days. He was starting to get quiet like me. Laura saw the shredded paper in the trash that night. Her jaw clenched. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. We were speaking in silences now. in stares and clenched fists and doors that closed a little too hard. I knew she resented me for not exploding, for staying composed, for outmaneuvering her. It killed her that I didn't scream or beg or pack my bags, that I just kept existing strategically. She wanted chaos, a dramatic confrontation, a reason to play victim. I denied her that every day. A week passed, then another. We fell into a rhythm that felt less like marriage and more like hostage negotiation. Shared logistics, muted conversations, like two diplomats in a ceasefire. Then one morning, as I sipped coffee on the porch, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "You're going to regret what you did to her," the voice said. It was him. "Have her. You're going to regret what you did to her." That was the first thing he said. No introduction. No hesitation. Like we were in the middle of a conversation I didn't remember starting. I stayed silent for a few seconds, watching steam curl from my coffee, like it might spell out what I should say. Then I said calmly, "Who is this?" But I knew. Of course I knew. There was a beat of silence on his end. Then he chuckled. Low, like we shared a secret. "You think you're in control, that you're clever, but you're just sad, man. You ruined something beautiful." I almost laughed. Beautiful. Like the thing he and Laura had built was some sacred temple, not a parasite sucking the life out of marriage, a family, a child. "You were screwing my wife," I said flatly. "And now you're threatening me." That's an interesting strategy for a guy who teaches spelling to fourth graders. He bristled. I could hear it. "You think I won't come forward? You think the board won't listen to my side of the story? She told me what you're doing, how you're manipulating her. She's terrified of you." That stopped me for a half second. Not because I believed it, but because I knew the game he was playing. Turn it around. Flip the narrative. Frame me as the unhinged husband, the abuser, the obstacle. Paint Laura as the victim. Again, they weren't just cheating. They were laying the groundwork for their defense. I hung up. Didn't say another word. Just pressed the red button and stared at the screen until the call log blurred. He didn't call back. He didn't have to. The message was planted. He wanted me paranoid, off balance. That night, I told Laura he'd contacted me. She didn't even deny it. Just stared at the floor and muttered. He said he might. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, waiting. "Did you tell him I'm abusing you?" She looked up sharply. "No, but you didn't stop him from thinking it." Her silence said everything. The next day, I filed for divorce. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No smashed dishes. Just paperwork. A notary. A pen. I walked into the county courthouse with a folder and walked out with a case number. Step 1. Divide the property. Step 2. Establish custody. Step 3. Unravel 13 years of entangled lives without letting the rot pull me under. She didn't react the way I expected. No begging. No tears. She just sat at the kitchen table, reading the paperwork like a recipe she wasn't sure she wanted to finish. "You really want to do this?" she asked. "You really want to tear everything apart?" I looked her in the eye. "You already did." The days that followed were transactional. Cold. We spoke through lists. Who would pick up Nate? Who would handle the utilities? Who got the bedroom TV? She moved into the guest room without a word. I didn't ask where she went during the afternoons. I didn't need to. The tracker on her car fed me everything. She hadn't stopped seeing him. They were just being careful now. Meeting at parks. At his apartment. Occasionally slipping into that same cafe like no one would notice. I watched it all from my phone, each location ping like a pulse in a dying heart. Then came the email. It was from Haver, not to me, to the school board. A formal letter. Accusations. Carefully worded. Implied threats. He didn't name me directly, but the message was clear. A student's parent has exhibited concerning behavior, monitoring teachers outside of school, engaging in harassment. I fear for the safety of my professional environment. I got a copy from a friend in admin. She sent it with a warning. He's trying to get ahead of something. Be careful. I read it 3 times, jaw tight, pulse steady. He was building a case, laying bricks for a restraining order. Maybe worse, trying to get custody leverage for Laura by making me look unstable. I met with my lawyer that afternoon, told her everything. The affair, the surveillance, the signed confession, the threats. She listened without flinching, then tapped a pen against her notebook. "We can use this," she said, But you need to stay clean. No confrontations. No calls. No contact with him, ever. Let him hang himself. I nodded, but part of me burned. The idea of sitting back while he twisted the truth made my skin itch. But I knew she was right. Let him slip. Let the lies pile up until they collapsed under their own weight. Then came the parenting mediation. A cold room with beige walls, and a woman named Karen who had mastered the art of fake empathy. Laura and I sat on opposite sides of a round table while Karen asked us about Nate's schedule, his routines, his needs. Laura played the part perfectly. Calm, maternal, tragic. I just want what's best for him, she said, voice cracking slightly. I watched her, measured, waiting. And Mr. Haver? I asked when it was my turn. Karen blinked. Excuse me. I turned to Laura. Is he going to be part of Nate's life? Should I expect to see him at handoffs? At birthday parties? Laura's lips parted, but no words came. Karen shifted in her seat. This isn't the time. It is, I interrupted. He's not just a teacher anymore. He's the man my wife risked our family for. I think that makes him relevant. Karen made a note on her clipboard. Probably some neutral phrase like father exhibits strong emotional reaction to infidelity. I didn't care. I wasn't there to win Karen's approval. I was there to set the record. Out loud. In front of her. Let the silence speak for itself. Afterward, Laura cornered me in the parking lot. You're making it worse, she hissed. You're making it easy, I said. Keep giving me rope. She stared at me for a long time. Something in her expression cracked, just for a second. Not guilt, not regret, resentment. Because I wasn't breaking, because I was playing the long game, and she knew it. She turned and walked away. That night, I found Nate crying in his room. Said he had a stomachache. Said he missed how things used to be. I lay next to him until he fell asleep. Stared at the ceiling. Thought about the version of my life I thought I'd built. The foundation I thought was solid. Turns out it was sand. And Laura? She was the tide. But tides can be tracked. Patterns can be charted. Storms can be anticipated. This wasn't the end. Not even close. The thing about predators is they don't expect you to play by their rules. They think they're the ones hunting. They don't realize the moment you stop flinching is the moment you become dangerous. I waited. I documented. I played nice. Meanwhile, I laid the groundwork. I opened a private email account, one Laura didn't know about. I bought a burner phone. I created a Dropbox folder titled Concerned Parent and started uploading everything. Photos, screenshots, GPS data, a zip file of messages between her and Haver. Most damning of all, that blurry hotel room video where she whispered his name like a secret password. I wrote a letter, anonymous but precise, addressed to the school superintendent, the board, a local journalist who did exposés on community scandals. I didn't send it. Not yet. This wasn't about destruction. Not yet. This was about leverage, about knowing you could pull the trigger and choosing not to for now. 2 days later, Laura told me she wanted to take Nate for the weekend. Just her. Said she needed quality time to reestablish a bond. I looked her in the eye and asked, will he be there? She hesitated, just long enough for the answer to land. No, she said. Of course not. I let her take him. Not because I believed her. Because I needed to see what she'd do when she thought I wasn't watching. Sure enough, by Saturday evening, the car pinged at an address I didn't recognize. A rental, tucked in a cul-de-sac 30 minutes outside the city. I drove past it once slow, windows up. Lights on inside. Nate's backpack visible through the window. Laura and Haver sitting close on the couch, watching something on TV like it was all normal. Like they were already a family. I didn't go in. I didn't knock. I just parked a block away and opened the app. Activated the recorder. Captured the GPS timestamp. Took pictures. A full dossier. Then I emailed it to my lawyer with a single sentence. This is what she calls parenting. Sunday night, she dropped Nate off without a word. He looked tired. Quiet. I asked if he had fun. He shrugged. We watched a movie. I made popcorn. I waited gently. Was it just you and Mom? Another shrug. Mom's friend was there. The guy from school. My jaw clenched, but I didn't let it show. Did he talk to you? Yeah. He said I should call him Marcus. He looked up then, brow furrowed. Do I have to? I crouched down, met his eyes. No, buddy. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. That night, I opened the Dropbox folder and stared at the files. My finger hovered over the send button for a long time. I thought about the fallout, the headlines, the shame, how Nate might find out years later that his mother and teacher had been the subject of a scandal that blew up our town. I thought about whether he'd hate me for it or thank me. Then I closed the folder. Not yet. Not until I needed it. War is won with patience, not fire. Monday morning came with a surprise. A knock at the door. A woman in a slate gray pantsuit and a badge. CPS. We received a report, she said, alleging emotional neglect and a hostile home environment. I let her in, offered coffee, sat at the table like I'd rehearsed it 100 times. Because I had. She asked about Nate, his schooling, his sleep patterns, whether there had been any domestic incidents. I told her the truth, showed her his room, his artwork, his schedule on the fridge. She took notes, asked if Laura had been present recently. I told her we were in the middle of separation, that things were tense but civil. She didn't tip her hand, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't finding what she expected. No chaos, no bruises, no threats, just a tired father and a quiet house. As she left, she paused at the door. If you remember anything else, she said, or if anyone contacts you inappropriately, document everything. I nodded. Already do. She left her card on the counter. I waited until her car was gone before picking up my phone. Laura answered on the third ring. You really called CPS? I said, no hello, no pretense. She went quiet. Then I didn't. A beat. It wasn't me. Then it was him. She didn't respond. He's not just a threat to me, I said, voice steady. He's a threat to your custody, to your future. You think this ends with us yelling over lawyers? No. He's burning your life to the ground, and you're smiling while he does it. The next day, I called a friend who worked in IT at the district. Asked him if he could check access logs. He owed me. Said he'd look. 2 days later, he texted, we didn't hear from me, but Haver's email has some interesting attachments. You might want to pull records before they disappear. I didn't ask how he knew. I already had access. Her email, his Dropbox, their shared folder titled for later. It wasn't just photos. It was plans, real estate listings in Oregon, job postings, a private school brochure with Nate's name already filled in on the mock application. They weren't just having an affair. They were building an exit plan with my son. So I called my lawyer again. Put in the emergency custody request. I said, it's time. The emergency hearing was quiet, sterile. A judge in a worn black robe, eyes scanning paperwork while Laura sat 2 chairs away, pretending not to sweat. My lawyer presented the files without flair, just fact after damning fact. The affair, the shared rental, Nate alone with a man under investigation. Laura tried to explain, voice trembling, but the judge cut her off. Until this is resolved, the child remains with his father. Bang. Temporary order granted. She didn't cry. She just stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time, like she realized I'd stopped playing defense. Outside the courthouse, Haver was waiting, leaning against his car like a smug bastard in a soap opera. You think you won? He said. I walked right past him. He followed. She'll come back. She always does. I stopped, turned. You keep talking, I said, and that Dropbox link's going public. His smile cracked. I got in my car and drove off. He didn't follow. She showed up a week later. No warning, just headlights in the driveway and the sound of gravel crunching like a neck being stepped on. Nate was asleep. I met her at the door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Hollowed out. I want to talk, she said. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. You already said enough, I replied. She wrung her hands like she was still hoping I'd be soft. Marcus left, she said. He said I wasn't worth the mess. I didn't flinch. He was right. Her eyes watered, but I didn't care. She betrayed us, and now she wanted something that looked like absolution. I didn't know how far it would go, she whispered. I didn't know you'd fight back. I said, of course you didn't. That's why it worked for so long. She asked to see Nate. I told her to call the court. Everything goes through paper now. No more favors. No more doorsteps. No more Laura. She stood there for a while, like the cold might convince me. But Winter doesn't care about regret. Eventually, she turned and walked back to her car, drove off without looking back. That night, I poured a drink. Opened the Dropbox folder one last time. Then I deleted it. All of it. Not because she deserved mercy. Because I didn't need it anymore. I'd already won. Some endings don't need applause. They just need silence. And distance. And a locked door.